She's on.
Yeah,
It's not showing up on here.
it's not. I don't know why it's not showing up on the,
It said recording.
yeah, but why it's not on the monitors, I don't know. This is not my wheelhouse,
Me neither.
so I don't understand tech. It was on here.
Are we good to go though?
Yeah. I don't know what to do.
Recording, Ron.
The recording is right. Is there anybody joining us online other than Tamika?
Just Meredith's on right now.
Tamika should be joining too.
She's not on yet. Why did this stop going to the screen? Does anybody want to look at it before we start?
I know the problem is that one of our members is joining us virtually. Is it, so it's up and running? but
It's
you-
on, only on my laptop. I don't know why it's not feeding now into this.
No, she was off. Now she'll-
Yeah, so I don't
So
know.
unplug the HDMI real quick. That's on PC, not. You have to have
Okay,
it
you
come
gotta go to
from
laptop. Oh, we're
that
trying to
should
get it
work.
back up again.
Make sure you mute your thing.
It's muted.
Okay.
I can't, if I mute my audio.
Go ahead and do some shades. I don't know what else. Your volume down on your computer, so no, never mind, you don't need to do that because it's not double thing, it's just this one, so you leave it out.
Okay.
Turn your volume up, unless it echoes that. turn it off.
I don't know.
I never remember. Happy Veterans Day, everyone.
So we're just waiting just for all of them to log back in. While we're doing that, remind folks, if you are joining us here, please silence your cell phone.
Assuming I'm in the right meeting because Meredith was here.
We'll just go ahead and start it.
Okay.
That's why she's not joining.
Okay. I'll watch and let her in as soon.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you guys are good. Mm.
Everybody ready? Are we recording?
We are.
Yeah.
City of Glendale Common Council is now in session. Ask everybody to please stand for the pledge of allegiance. And we do have a veteran on our city staff, Director Emmett from Public Works, is going to lead us in the pledge. So, Charlotte?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll.
All right, I'm not sure, Ms. Baldwin, are you calling the roll or is Mr. Warwick? Okay, Ms. Baldwin, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Doherty.
Here.
Alderman Gelhardt.
Here.
Alderman Bailey.
Here.
Alderman Schmelzing.
Here.
Alderwoman Shaw.
Here.
Alderwoman Hukavik.
Who will be joining us. She just texted that she is trying to log in. I don't know what's going on, so
Mayor Kennedy,
here,
we have a quorum.
thank you. All right, first item on the agenda is public comment. Your residents, business owners, and property owners are invited to speak to the council on items that are not on tonight's agenda but within the city's ability to regulate or control. Is there anyone wishing to speak to a non-agenda item? Yes, sir. The microphone's kind of tricky. You have to pull it right up in front of your face and speak directly into it. It has to be about 2 or 3 inches from your mouth or it won't pick you up. If you would please start with your name and address.
Wayne Martin, 7275 North Fort Washington Road, apartment number 1221, Glendale, Wisconsin, 53217. To hopefully British matters, the city of Glendale in particular, or the fire department has almost $7,000 on Wisconsin unclaimed property through the Department of Revenue. I printed this out, so it'll hopefully be easier for you all to find it or whoever's in charge of treasury stuff. I'll stick around after.
That was the fire department?
The fire department and also the city of Glendale.
Okay,
So I'll just leave that out here.
sure, thank you. We can check. The fire department is a consolidated fire department, but we can give it to them as well. We are members of it, one of the 7 communities that participate. Thank you.
And then this is from a couple meetings prior, but for the new.
Could you move the microphone a little bit closer? You're not being picked up. Thank you.
So for the amount that you're paying, the Lauterbach and Hammond for the financial services, I saw 3 numbers, 156,000 on the budget expenditure report, 159,000 on the exhibit A of what you're going to be paying them, and then what appears to be 160,000 in the 2024 preliminary budget. I was just wondering how much you are paying them in total.
Mr. Warwick, could you explain that?
So I guess I don't understand the question because there's a couple different years. There's a 2025 adopted budget with a price, I believe, of $155,000. In previous years, it was an hourly rate that I don't have the amount on top of my head, but I believe it's probably in the $150,000 range in previous years to do financial consulting work. But in 2025, the budget, and it is a hard number, I believe, is $155,000.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Would you give that fire department item to Mr. Warwick? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in the public comments? All right, seeing no one else, we'll move on then with our consent agenda. There's 2 items: adoption of the minutes of our last meeting and the approval of accounts payable. Can I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Schmelzling, seconded by Doherty. Without objection, we'll consider the consent agenda adopted. Ms. Baldwin, it looks like Ms. Bukovic is now waiting. Thank you. All right, we have a public hearing that we are noticed for tonight regarding a certified survey map of 2510 West Good Hope Road. It combines 4 lots into a single parcel in order for new land construction to build a multifamily residential development. And I will turn it over to Mr. Warwick or Ms. Perks, whoever's going to introduce this item before we open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. I'll just quickly introduce the item. If you want, I can bring it up on the Zoom so everybody can see it as well. We've discussed the development at 2510 Good Hope Road. The property currently today sits as 4 different parcels with unvacated roadway in the middle of it. That is the subject of the next public hearing, which would be to vacate that public roadway. So this item on here is simply to combine the 4 different parcel numbers into one parcel, generally located at 2510 Good Hope Road.
All right, thank you. Does any member of the council have any questions? All right, so we do have a public hearing for 2 items. So we can open one public hearing and people can speak to either the approval of the certified survey map or the resolution that vacates and discontinues the unapproved portion of the right of way. So there's no questions from anybody on the council, we will go ahead and open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak regarding the development of 2510 West Good Hope Road, either the certified survey map or the resolution where the city would vacate an unimproved portion of a right-of-way to become a portion or part of the property? Public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak can approach the microphone. Good evening, Mr. Cromwell. Would you please state your name and address?
Sure, Robert Cromwell, 7530 North Applewood Lane. When I was reviewing it, I just wanted to get some clarification. So the city is still keeping the section of the street that goes from range line to the edge of the newly developed property? That's still gonna be a city road, or are you vacating all of it?
We're vacating that, and then it will become an entrance to the new development, but it will become private property as opposed to a city street.
That part of that is not part of this vacation, just simply the part that is within the boundaries of the area. Currently, to date, the developer is in negotiations with the owner of the property, and it's probably going to move forward as a vacation in the future if they're able to negotiate a sale. If not, the development agreement would be amended, and maybe you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, of the language development agreement that they would maintain it even if it is a public roadway.
Is that correct, Mr. Barrett?
Yes, that's right. That's correct. So they're essentially what's going on is they're in the process of acquiring the reversion rights when that's vacated. So it'll essentially be it'll be a private drive to access the development from Range Line Road. It's just a separate process. That's all.
Okay, and that also brought up the other question I had is, for tonight, you're just vacating the stuff that's essentially at the back of the property line for 7230 North Range Line Road, which is the southern property that borders the road easement. But the northern property, 7072, actually goes a little bit further back. So when you vacate the road, the last, I don't know, 3, 5, 10 feet or whatever, because it's hard to tell on the scale of this. From the center line over to that northern property actually reverts back to that property owner. Where it borders both that property at the back and the new development property on the other side of the road. And I didn't see that being addressed anywhere in here.
No, it'll revert to the developer who owns all of the lots surrounding. So the way that the law works is either, if you can't tell who owned the property prior to the dedication of the right of way, then you split it down the middle and one half goes to one side, one half goes to the other. But if you can determine which lot the dedicated right of way came from initially, it reverts back to that. So, and that's what we've got. So the reversion goes to the developer because the developer owns all 4 of the lots that surround the area that's being abandoned, the right of way that's being abandoned.
Right, for most of it, I agree with you, but there is that small amount right where, it's hard to describe, it's the back of the 7270 property line, it's the northern property on the road. It actually goes back a little bit further than the property to the south of the road, so it becomes a property bordering the vacated space for that little section. I mean, it's not much, it's probably 2 to 10 feet, something like that, but.
Based upon my review, it's not, my opinion is as
So who was the original owner when it was?
I'm not gonna get into, so at some point we ran basically a title search associated with all of the land that's owned in that area. And to determine essentially who would have the reversion rights. And I'm not gonna get into chapter and verse all of those documents and all of that research, but my opinion on this is that this is adequate for what's being proposed this evening, and then the additional unnamed public street there that you see on the exhibit, the street vacation exhibit, That is not yet being transferred. And at some point, the developer's in the process of acquiring the reversion rights, and so we'll move forward. That's why we're doing it sectionally, if you will.
Your explanation doesn't really make a lot of sense, because if the original owner of that entire easement area is what the plots that the developer owns, then they wouldn't have to negotiate with the other two properties to get that easement section back, they would just get it.
I have nothing further to say on that. If that's what you want to think, be my guest.
Not me, it's just how state law works. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in the public hearing regarding the certified survey map or the vacation of the public street? Second call. Anyone wishing to speak in the public hearing? And third and final opportunity. All right, I would entertain a motion from a member of the council to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Gellhardt, seconded by Shaw. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Public hearing is now closed. Okay, the first item is for the council to approve the certified survey map that has been presented that combines 4 lots into one. This was sent to the plan commission. The plan commission referred it back with a recommendation that we approve. We held the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve the certified survey map as presented? Thank you. Moved by Bailey.
Second.
Seconded by Doherty. Any discussion on the CSM? All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. The CSM is approved. The second item is a resolution that authorizes the vacation and discontinuance of an unimproved portion of the right-of-way that was created in CSM 8772. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution, please?
Moved.
Thank you. Moved by Schmelzling. Seconded by Bailey. Any discussion on the resolution? All those in favor of approving, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted, the CSM was approved, and the vacation of the unimproved street is approved. All right, that concludes our public hearing information. We'll now move on to new business. The first item of new business tonight is the city snow removal and salting policy, and I will turn it over to Mr. Emick. It is that time of year, although it doesn't feel like it when it's 60 degrees, but
Yeah, I never say the four-letter word until it's time, but,
Yeah.
so this is my annual, come in front of you all. Last year, you all approved the revised city snow and ice policy, so this is just an update on kind of what we're anticipating and, just kind of clarifications, things like that, so I'm not gonna take too much time on it, but just kind of briefly go through it. If there are any questions, please let me know, but, one of the things is, based upon the need for snow and ice control, so it's actually the accumulation. Previously, it was 3 inches or less. We clarified that to say at any time we feel that it's an issue for safety or whatever, we go out and treat it. Obviously, our brining has been increased the past couple of years, actually been recognized by the DNR for such practices and kind of leading the field. In fact, this week, we're hosting a seminar for other municipalities to come and listen to our talk and see our equipment and things that we're doing. So we're continuing that policy again, obviously, trying to implement better practices and policies to do with that. We do have sensors we have in the road in 4 different locations we put in this summer that tell the dew point, the road temperature, and other sensors. So we can again perfect that and try to provide the best and safest roads possible for the residents. Let's see, certain areas of the city have a greater intensity use and priority for maintenance. So again, the main roads will get first attention as well as the secondaries and things like that. Again, we don't salt the alleys, we do plow them, so that's something as well to remind everybody. And this year, I guess one more thing, because I don't want to talk too much more about it, because I think a lot of it's standard, is again, with the implementation of new sidewalks, those are the responsibility for our ordinance of the residents to maintain, so specifically along G. Nicolay. The sidewalk on Port Road, from Carl Campus Drive up to Daphne we will again maintain that. That is a new sidewalk, but the city has maintained that. As well as the paths that we will have on Good Hope from Green Bay to the Parkway. The city will maintain that because the county does not. The path that is in the middle of the Parkway from Sunny Point down to Silver Spring, the city will maintain, since the parks will not maintain that, as well as some other sidewalks that we have implemented, but everything else would be the either business or budding resident to maintain.
All right, are there any questions? Yeah, Alderman Doherty.
Is that the kind of thing that some people might not know that sidewalk's their responsibility?
There is a letter sent out every
Okay.
November. In fact, it might have already gone out. We did it ahead of time for the new people, I guess, that were getting sidewalk, just so they had time to contact a contractor if need be. So we felt that was a courtesy to get that out ahead of. But typically this time of year, we do send it out to all the businesses and properties that abut those sidewalks.
Good call, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Alderman Gilhart.
So if the weather continues as it is and we have very little snow this winter, we budgeted a certain amount for salting, brining, et cetera. What happens to that money then? Does it go back to DPW for those services next year? Does it get kicked into the general fund?
Where do we sit with the mountain of salt?
Well, the salt, correct, the salt is pre-purchased, that's through the state bid, so we get the lowest price for that, so we are committed to the 1,100, I think, that we purchased this year, which is continually been less each year due to more grinding, but again, we still have to keep it on hand, because this year, and I gotta be honest, I don't subscribe to long range forecasts, because they always change, but this year we're in El Nino, I think, or whatever, so it's actually,
Yeah.
what they're forecasting is more of a normal, wetter, colder winter, so we may be back to the old school winters we used to have, and not the ones that Alderman Gilhart that's where we don't have much snow, but, so we are committed to the salt, so we purchased for that, that is 100% committed, but any other savings we see would be back in.
Yeah, as we get savings, it simply reduces the city's expenses, which increases our fund balance and betters our performance, and then that money is sort of carried over in a larger fund balance year to year. We do rebudget typically based on averages for fuel and for overtime. So just because last year we had maybe $10,000 in overtime for snow, and the typical is 20, we probably want to keep that higher amount, which is what we have in the budget.
And that's where the cost savings is the overtime. Not the salt. We just end up with a big amount of salt.
Well, then it reduces it for the following year, because then we purchase less if we have a bigger snow.
Right. Any other questions? Yeah, Alderman Schmelzen.
I just wanna mention something for our constituents on Green Tree Avenue sidewalks, specifically the ones that are right next to the road. If there's any way to mitigate plowing snow directly onto that piece of sidewalk, that'd be appreciated. So I know it's a tricky situation, but maybe just leave a little bit on the road, since people are walking on the road and the bike lane area, or the parking area that might be preferred to kind of shovel the sidewalk.
Part of the issue is the speed. When they're going down the street at 25 miles an hour, or 30 miles an hour, they throw it. Like I've cleaned I actually have the grass terrace between the sidewalk and the road certain way. It's about 4 or 5 feet wide. And if they're going fast down my street, you know, not going like 10 miles an hour, but going like 25 or 30, they just completely cover my sidewalk.
And so maybe they just have to go faster down Green Tree, then it's like completely skid off of even the sidewalk that's right next to the road. I'm not making suggestions.
How many mailboxes do you want us to replace?
But I know there's no perfect solution, but just if there's anything that in those
And
specific.
to the mayor's point, it's really only 10, 15 miles. You'd be surprised how slow we go, but how fast that snow comes off of the plows. I mean, my first year when I started, I actually went on a ride along and I followed them just because there were complaints, to your point. And 10, 15 maybe. I mean, it's surprising how slow we go, but how fast the snow does come off depending on, you know, the water weight and everything else with it. But to your point, Alderman Schmelzing, I think this is gonna be a learning curve. I mean, we have a lot more real estate now on Port Road. Jean Nicolay will have a lot more plowing. In fact, that's one of our better plow operators up in Alderman Gallagher's road is Will Giddings. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting how we do and what we do, because it is gonna be a learning curve where to put snow. We have actually 2 cul-de-sac roads in Mount Royal neighborhood where we've never had them before, so placement and everything. So bear with us. I know you guys spend off a lot of your constituents calls, and we appreciate that, but we certainly do our best. And obviously the residents are our main focus and everything, and getting passable safe roads. But it'll be a little bit of an interesting season, so we'll see what we can do, but certainly perfected each year after that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, I do have one last question. You mentioned road on Good Hope.
Yes,
Are we adding the sidewalk? Because I haven't seen any construction over there.
the sidewalk,
Bike path, it's a bike path on the south side of Good Hope from the Parkway to Green Bay, and it's
Yes.
in other than a couple of the driveway approaches.
Oh, it doesn't go beyond Green Bay. Okay.
It does, it's
Correct.
correct, at
All
Green
right.
Bay, and goes to the Parkway.
I was coming down Good Hope and turned on Green Bay, and I thought we were going all the way down to the Oak Leaf Trail, but we're not. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Other Oak Leaf, Milwaukee River Park.
Yeah, got it. All right, thank you. All right, move on to our next item, which is a recommendation from the Legislative Judiciary and Finance Committee to approve an application for a Class B beer retail license, Class B liquor retailer license. This is for Mallard's Restaurant. Alderman Doherty, you held a meeting right before. Can you give us a recommendation from the committee, please?
So the committee unanimously recommended we approve those.
Okay, would you like to make a motion and to approve it on behalf
I
of the
would,
committee?
I would like to, I would move that we approve the two Class B beer retail license and Class B retail liquor license for Mallard's Wisconsin LLC.
Thank you. So if we move on, Alderman Doherty, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or discussion on this item? All right, all those in favor of approving the liquor license for Mallard's operated Bay Shore, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Motion carries. License is approved. Next item is Wisconsin DOJ grant for Axon Body Cam program, and I will turn it over to the chief.
All right, so in 2022, we had applied for a Wisconsin DOJ grant that was going to help us move some of our files from our server to the cloud. After that was approved, they ended up telling us they couldn't do it. Since we get those grants, you got to report quarterly to the state. We actually reached out and asked if we could close that grant, and the good employee at the state advised us that we could adjust that due to our new program, and they told us that they would cover 50% of a maximum of $90,633.34. So to do that, we'd have to adjust the budget to increase the first year payment to $181,266.68 to get that full maximum amount back from that grant of over $90,000. That would lower the 5-year total cost to $219,618, down to $43,923 annually. It has been approved by them, and now it's just bringing it to the council for approval.
All right, thank you, chief. Are there any questions for the chief? All right, can we get a motion then to approve the Wisconsin Department of Justice grant award for the Axon Body and Squad camera purchase?
So moved.
Moved by Shaw, seconded by Doherty. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is the Braeburn Drive Rehabilitation Agreement. I will turn it over to Mr. Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. So I can bring this on the screen if you guys would like. We are asking for approval and agreement with Trees on Move, not to exceed $14,887. This is being asked for a couple of reasons. In the memo and in the information, the council and the public can see that the end of Braeburn with the addition of the new driveway is not completely finished, and I will share my screen here in a second. So I guess the sharing screen isn't working. We have a lot of audio video issues tonight. But at the end of Braeburn is really not finished, and it's sort of a area of disrepair. So we're asking for an agreement to ratify the agreement that the mayor and the council president have already approved. And what we want to do is use the contractor or the homeowner's contractor to finish the repair of this. Our city engineer Mustafa, who is in the council chambers tonight, has reviewed the contract and said the costs are very competitive. So on the screen is sort of the end of how Braeburn Drive is, and Mustafa can explain this better. We're going to continue this curve here finish the driveway and extend it further. And here on the next page, this is sort of gets into the issue, is that when the road was vacated to allow for the construction of this home in 2017, the owner of the house was given the ownership of the full road, including across the street. So the owner of the house does not have access to his house without driving through private property. I'll just bring up the next screen here real quick. This is how it was. This must have been the original of trying to do a cul-de-sac or a bulb or something here, before the road was vacated. So Attorney Bear and the homeowner are working on an agreement to vacate a portion of the road back to the city. So it's the normal right of way here, and we sort of are working on the legal description. The owner wants to get his driveway finished, so it's not gravel for the winter, and we have the desire to have that finished to make it easier for snow plowing. So we're asking for ratification of this agreement so we can move forward with the restoration of the end of the road. And then when we do that over the winter, Attorney Bear will work on finalizing the documents and vacate the road back to the city.
Thank you. Are there any questions for either Mr. Warwick or for Mr. Amir? All right, and this was brought because we're getting toward the end of the season, the ability to get this done right away. The city administrator reached out to the mayor and the common council president for an emergency approval. So we did approve, but it has to come before the council for final approval. So Steve and I did sign off on it so we could get it started right away and get it done before the weather turns. Can we get a motion though to approve the agreement with Trees on the Move?
So moved.
Moved by Doherty, seconded by Schmelzling. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is an engineering change order with Clark Dietz not to exceed $312,200 for the Silver Spring reconstruction project. And does this go to Mr. Warwick or Mr. Amir?
I will take this one as an introduction, but Mr. Amir will obviously have to fill in some of the gaps that I will have. The city council, the common council approved a regulation with Clark Dietz for the construction project of the Silver Spring from basically the city limits to the bridge on Milwaukee River Parkway. As a result of some of the re-engineering of a lot of the projects and the addition of streetlights and traffic signals and other additional items, Clark Dietz has asked for an engineering change order of $317,200. The cost estimates for the project are included in here. We also have approval of the city of Milwaukee. Both the Public Works Committee and the Common Council of Milwaukee have agreed on the 30% cost share and have passed that. So that is a big step for the city. I will turn it over to Mr. Amir to fill in any of the gaps.
So the good news is that the congressional earmark of $4 million and the additional $4 million that the city and Milwaukee have received from DOT were combined in one single funding source by the department. This completely changed the delivery method of the project from a fully Glendale run table to a fully state run project. I'm happy to report that the plans and specifications and project documents are in the hands of WSDOT officials as of the 1st of this month. Staff were shocked at first, but got it done. So we are right on schedule on our end. The state will do their review, come back to us with any comments they might have. And the intent is to bid this job. So the state will be bidding part of their giant packages in January. It's expected that that course will, that process will run its course, and that with governor's signature, etc., the project will be awarded in March. So we have a real project in our hands. The reason for this additional funds that we are in front of today is to transform our Glendale project into a state project. And the reviews, the standards, and the paperwork associated with it required a number of changes to how we were positioned vis-a-vis the contract. However, as Carl just said, the cost share agreement that we have with the city is 70-30, and this amount that we have in front of you today corresponds almost exactly to the design share of the city of Milwaukee. So at the end, I guess I was here several months ago and we said, you know, this is what it is when you approved it last time. I guess ultimately it was what it was. And the additional funds that we're asking today is no additional burden to our taxpayers.
So, Clark Dietz did all the engineering up front, and we're paying for that now. Milwaukee will reimburse us for 30%. And everything else was transferred to the state. So they're gonna pay for it, and we will have to pay them whatever isn't covered by the state grant and the federal earmark. The remainder will be then split 70-30, but they will bill us and bill Milwaukee for the remainder.
That's exactly correct. All of the construction, so they'll hold the paper on the contractor.
Yep.
They will also hold the paper on inspections, so construction management, administration, all that stuff. And essentially draw from the $8 million as it goes.
Okay. But the preliminary engineering was outside of that, we paid for that in advance. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, any questions for the engineer?
So long-term then, this is because we had to redo and we also increased some of the scope items for the design work. Is this going to reduce your efforts in the future on the construction management portion of it?
We are not at all involved in
Not
that.
at all, okay, so.
State's doing it all.
State's doing it all, so ultimately, we shouldn't have, additional costs that we would have incurred otherwise.
So you will get billed for that work by the state. However, the funding that we have covers it. So in other words, you're always getting a portion of the bill. Because remember that your $4 million is a straight up contribution from Congress. The second $4 million is the 80% share, right? So any of those bills will be, as on an ongoing basis, 20% of the ongoing costs.
To us, okay.
Yeah, and so right now we have a general cost estimate with contingency of 25% of 13.9 million. That 13.9 million would be reduced hopefully by approximately 2.9 if the 25% contingency is not used. So we have budgeted about 4.2, which is the maximum included in here in the city's budget. The hopes is being somewhere between that and the $2.2 million, which is if we need no contingencies and everything comes in right at budget.
January bid opening is, in our opinion and the state's opinion, is one of the most favorable times to open a bid. And I think that we're going to be below our sort of maximum imagined spending.
Any other questions for the engineer? All right, so we have before us a change order, engineering change order with Clark Dietz for the amount of $317,200. Can I get a motion to approve the change order?
Moved.
Second. Moved by Gallagher, seconded by Doherty. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. And our next item also is with Clark Dietz. This is design engineering services, not to exceed $112,500 for the road resurfacing, alley rehabilitation, and the Bender Bridge resurfacing project. And I'll turn it back over to Mr. Warwick and Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. As we just stated, the best time to bid is in January, so we're hoping to meet that again with these projects to hopefully get more competitive pricing. As you will see on the memo, there's a list there of the projects for 25 and 26 that need design engineering. So we are asking for approval of design engineering for the road resurfacing program alleys, which also includes the resurfacing of the Bender Bridge. We are still working on the scope of work for the 2025 ditching program, so we intend to bring that to you guys back later. And also included in the budget is the design engineering for the 2026 projects. So hopefully about November, about a year from now, we will bring back an agreement to design the 2026 water main resurfacing alley ditching programs, all to you guys to again get favorable times for bidding.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the city administrator or the city engineer? Okay, can we get a motion to approve the design engineering agreement with Clark Dietz for $112,500? Moved by Gelhardt. Second by Bailey. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
One question while we're on this, what's happening at Bender Bridge right now? Those guys have been camped out forever.
They are replacing the expensive joints under the sidewalks.
I know, but they've been replacing them for
I'm aware.
months.
I'm super aware. Well,
They're only working on one side, the other side they
Yeah.
spray painted, but that's it.
We feel your pain on that, and we've been pushing the contractor, it's the same contractor who is working on the sidewalk programs, and there are sometimes unexplained delays and a lot of pushback from both our engineers and from city staff to get them to complete this work in a more efficient manner, because unfortunately, there's barricades out there that are disrupting traffic, and they refuse to complete various sections so they can be removed. So Charlie can attest to this, and so can Mustafa, that we've pushed really hard with not that great of results to get them to get this stuff done.
So that should come into play if they bid future jobs in the city.
Yeah, and there's liquidated damages that we probably shouldn't have mentioned, but that will probably be coming out of this as well.
it will for sure figure in my future recommendations to you for contract award. You should also know that since
They may not be a responsible bidder in the future, is that what you're saying?
I think that's the word I was looking for. The other thing is that, since October 20-something, where they are officially incomplete, they are, as per our contract, your contract with this outfit, they are paying for our services. So that the
I'm worried
city
about
is,
bikers and stuff, you know, just the way the bridge is, it's not that safe.
it's not.
Okay.
And we're basically at this point about 4 weeks, maybe 5 at the most, until the plant shut down for the winter. So they have to get it finished pretty quickly. Otherwise, it's incomplete until next year. All right, yeah, thank you. All right, the next item is an ordinance repealing and replacing section 13.1.92 regarding parking regulations, and I will turn it over to the city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. Unfortunately, I lost Meredith because of our bad connection tonight for any backup on this one, so I'll try my best to go through the proposed parking amendments. As you guys know, we've seen a lot of developments recently, and in some of those developments, we've noticed that our parking regulations have been different from what developers have shown have been needed on various development projects. As a result of that, and just some of the observations of what those regulations require, and the fact that sometimes we had parking regulations for uses that we didn't allow, and then we had uses that didn't have parking regulations, we wanted to try to make that more cohesive. And then also with the construction of the Van Horn auto site, we didn't have any specific regulations regarding motor vehicle sales and service centers, so we wanted to establish specific regulations for that as well. So as a review of all of those items, we've come up with a modified ordinance for parking regulations to send to the Plan Commission, who meets actually tomorrow, to review it and make a recommendation back to the Common Council. Most of the changes are in the title under subsection T. There were a couple modifications sent to the common council today. A lot of it, Alderman Schmelzing found a couple of typos and reference things in the ordinance, so thank you, and we corrected those. The other item, and we didn't really pay close attention to the first paragraph, it was sort of the introduction. The last sentence didn't really make a whole lot of clarity, so we clarified that, and that was sent to you guys in a red line version of it. So you'll see at the bottom, various uses, and you'll notice that a lot of these uses are very general in nature rather than very specific. Commercial center, retail center, personal use like a hair salon. So we looked at the norms for what a lot of these uses have, and we established a minimum standard for that, which we've seen in our code, but also in this proposed ordinance, a maximum. So a developer doesn't overbuild parking, that we wanted to make sure that the parking was sort of right size. So we tried to keep both of those within what the industry standard was for those. And I know top of mind is probably the first one, which is the multifamily and townhouse development, 1.5 stalls per dwelling unit. A lot of standards used to be 2, and they've been sort of reduced over the years, particularly in urban areas, as there's been a less reliance on vehicular traffic, particularly in these urban areas, like I said, for multifamily dwelling units. So 1.5 to 2 is typically the standard, and the recently approved 2510 Good Hope project, it's 1.5 stalls per dwelling unit. So I guess I'll open it up to any questions anyone has on the ordinance.
I think we saw an extreme example with the development of the Dunkin' Donuts. When you looked at the square footage of the restaurant, we needed something like, 100 stalls or something?
Over 100 stalls, and this.
And it's mostly gonna be a drive-through donut place, so, yeah, kind of ridiculous that they would have to have 100, so that's why that's what led the beginning of this discussion, but. Yeah, I took into, I think, account a lot more of the things that we also recognized, in other projects, so. Are there any questions for the city administrator regarding the new parking regulations? Yeah, Alderman Schmelzer, go ahead.
Yeah, I already kind of brought this discussion forward with the city administrator, and it's more for the council. I just think about like dwelling units is one thing, but I think also the size of the dwelling units. So when I think about what we have with the new developments being planned, I would hope it's a lot of single apartments. So I think that probably makes sense, then it's 1.5, if you have maybe some of them single occupancy, some with, 2 individuals. But when we start getting into 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, I think about the townhome that my mother has. She has, 4 parking spots, 2 in a garage, 2 outside, and it's a 2-bedroom. And this wouldn't align to that because, well, it just wouldn't for the maximum. Is that too excessive? It doesn't look like it's over the top of the location. So I don't necessarily have an issue with this, but I think we might want to consider taking into to the size of the dwelling units versus just the count. Something to think about as a council. And the only other thing I had a question about is, I don't know if I read like 10% green space in a parking lot is the threshold that was being put in place. We're Glendale, kind of like a little more green. I don't know if that is flexible or where that baseline comes from. But those are the only 2 things I had in mind for the council to think about.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Alderman Geller, go ahead.
So, if, I don't know how many people on the council remember this, but in my district, the Glen, it had been long-term stay hotel, and then it was turned into apartments. We've had problems with parking ever since then. There's just not enough parking. And so they're parking on city streets, and then the residents don't like that. And so, when you're talking about an automobile dealership, I have no problem, doing whatever as it relates to that. But if you're talking about an apartment complex, I think that as many parking stalls as possible, 2 per unit is probably not unreasonable. That would solve the problem with the Glen right now. I'm just hoping as time goes on, we'll have fewer people living there, and we don't have the problem that presents itself. But you're just asking for problems if you don't have enough parking for your residents.
I believe the Glen only had like 80 some units, but like 90 some parking spaces. It was basically a 1-to-1 almost. Maybe 1.1 to 1 or something like that. It was really, it was questionable. When it was a Residence Inn by Marriott, you know, that was more likely, but the correct number, but yes, apartments certainly. Yeah, but 1.5, that increases significantly. Imagine if the Glen had, you know, 140 something parking spaces as opposed to barely 100. Yeah. Yeah. Alderman Doherty? You had a quick-
No, that's been a problem all along, ever since day one that opened and changed from a Residence Inn.
Right.
Alderman Shelton, go ahead. This is parking lot stuff, so if it's a garage space that's not included, or how's that work? Because we have some, like, think about the spaces in the new development, the whole first floor is going to be, you know, a parking lot, but it's inside the building.
Yeah, that counts towards the parking, is the indoor parking that's underground, of course, counts. And I do not believe garages count towards the parking requirements. I'm not sure Joey would know whether or not we counted those in their development agreement or not. Did you? It's all including the 2 garage spots, okay. So then we do count the 2 garage spaces as 2 garage spaces as well.
I'm still worried about not having enough parking if we have these larger 2 to 3 bedroom units, like single. I think this is
I think the
probably
2 to
fine.
3 bedroom units are only in the townhomes anyway, and they all have 2 spots in their garage.
Yeah, not specifically that development, I think I'm just thinking about the ordinance in general, because it doesn't take into consideration the size of the dwelling unit.
Yeah, and this is totally a policy choice up to the common council. You could go a minimum of 1.5 or a minimum of 2 or whatever the council wanted, and not establish a maximum for multifamily. That's certainly, you know, an option. I think what the standard gets to of particularly like 3-bedroom townhomes is that you still have 2 drivers or 1 driver, because the 3rd bedroom, or in a townhome where the 2nd bedroom in an apartment is usually a kid not of the driving age. That's what I think drives this, but it's certainly a policy decision.
And these formulas are pretty much kind of standard across the board, across the country, aren't they? Those are like the norms that we see in developments like this everywhere.
Yeah, and they're different depending on what type of region you're in. If you're more urban, we try to go more towards that. You know, we looked at other cities close to Milwaukee and Madison and trying to get it rather than in rural Wisconsin, which matters too. We do have a public transit system here as well too. So we took that into account. We probably looked at 4 or 5 different parking codes with different regulations and tried to put them together for what would be best for Glendale. So it is, of course, a policy choice. Yes, we did try to take best practice for similar type of communities to Glendale.
Any other questions? All right, can we get a motion then to refer this to the Planning and Architecture Review Commission? Moved by Shaw. Seconded by Bailey. Any discussion? All those in favor of referring this to the Planning and Architecture Review Commission, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you all for approving it, because it was already on the agenda for tomorrow night's meeting, so. Next item is an amended development agreement to the city of Glendale and 2510 Good Hope LLC. Mr. Warwick? It's probably you and Mr. Bear, right?
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll take this. So, under the city's ordinances in a planned development area, under the code, there has to be a development agreement pursuant to those requirements at this stage, and then if and when the city sees fit to initiate a TID, then there'll be another agreement to lay out all the parameters associated therewith and what the benefits and the increments would be to cover. So this really is sort of the preliminary step to solidify that agreement with the developer for this particular property on 2510 West Good Hope Road, that lays out some of the general parameters of what's going to be expected from each side. And then we'll have.
Jessica, I can't hear the attorney.
Then we'll also have another agreement down the road if and when the TIF is initiated.
He's talking in the mic.
He's not.
Tamika's saying she can't hear
Hello,
him.
hello,
Nika said she wasn't able to hear you. It
Yeah.
must be.
hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear him now.
You can just keep going from there, go ahead.
So I'll just sort of summarize again, the district that this is in, the zoning district as a planned development area, requires that we have this development agreement at this preliminary stage, if you will, and then there's going to be a second agreement that will come forward if the tax incremental financing is initiated and approved. And that second agreement will spell out, what the increment will be used for, and the parameters and all those other things. So this is just sort of the first preliminary step so that each side can solidify the things that are required of them and what is expected of the other side. We know that we have a former greenhouse site, so there's going to be, we're anticipating some remediation, and it sets a general time plan, and we've worked collaboratively with the developer. A lot of this is standard language that we have, and sort of a template for these preliminary agreements. It's been reviewed by the developer and approved by them, so we've worked through that process. And Meredith and I and Carl have also worked with them collaboratively to get this agreement.
All right, are there any questions for the city attorney? All right, so we have before us an amended development agreement. Can I get a motion to approve the development agreement, please? Thank you. Moved by Bailey. Is there a second? Second by Schmelzing. Any discussion? Alderman Geller, go ahead.
And just to clarify, I guess this really should have been directed to the attorney when he was making his presentation, but there's going to be a second vote on this tax incremental finance district, is that right?
That's a totally separate process, yep. And there'll be pursuant to the statute, there'll be hearings, there'll be public hearings, and there'll be collaboration with the other taxing entities in the district, and that'll be a whole separate process.
Okay, but just to clarify, we will be taking a vote on that, is that right?
Eventually.
Yeah,
That's correct.
All right, and so I did have some feedback from constituents about this project. I'm just reading it from the email I got from them. There will be noise and light, and the developer was sketchy about what trees might be cut down. This person says, I'm a fan of trees, berms, and fences. I don't know if these people are the developers of One North and Bayside. This person describes that as grotesque. In any event, so this person, I guess this person's concerns that they had to be isolated, or that they'd like to have, screening trees, that sort of thing, separating the current residences from this development. I guess that's what I'm taking from that. And so I'm not really sure what the plan is for that, but I think at least this individual would like to see some landscaping that might cover up the new development.
And so that's a great question, and there's a site plan review and approval process that's already been gone through, and landscaping and green space and all of those things have been reviewed by various committees and been approved. So that's definitely something that's been taken into consideration by the evaluating bodies. And I'm confident that, I'm not sure if Meredith would have any additional comments on that, but I'm confident that the site plan does incorporate all of those concerns.
Yes, I would agree with that, Nathan, and how you described the process to this point.
Hold on a second, Meredith. Can you put your microphone right next to the?
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it up and
computer?
then see if I can.
Since we're not working with the installed computer we're using in the laptop.
Where's the speaker coming from?
Meredith, can you try and speak, please?
Sure, and sorry for all the trouble. Just for me to say, I agree, Nathan. You described that accurately on the process so far, and the plans that were included in that review, including landscape and screening.
Yeah, the development agreement also references that there's a landscape plan, and that landscape plan must be maintained as part of the development.
All right, any other questions? Okay, so you have a motion and a second. And any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the amended development agreement, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Motion carries. All right, and our final item of new business tonight is a resolution approving budget amendments for the 2024 budget. And I'll turn it back over to the city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Kennedy. So the final item tonight is for the budget amendments. All of these budget amendments were included in the draft 2025 budget for estimated year ends that was presented previously to the common council. They are all listed here individually. I guess the big thing that I will just go over quickly is you'll see a $267,000 budget amendment for finance that doesn't increase spending by anything other than it reallocates resources from other areas to create a finance budget for 2024. We sort of lumped it with administration, and after we did that, we realized that finance should be broken out separately. So the amended budget for 2024 included in the draft budget for 2025 does include finance as a separate function within the general fund. There is the amendment to the North Shore court budget for the entire budget of $1,034,000. That's to increase expenses and revenue for adding the Brownview branch to the North Shore courts. Then the item below that for MMSD floodplain is the purchase, acquisition, and demolition of the houses related to floodplain properties. Any other questions on any of the other proposals?
So we get 100% of that money back.
Yeah, we did have the budget for the expense. We didn't because we didn't know how many we were gonna do. We've now put a budget estimate out there for future that we hope to adhere to, but no matter what that is, it's 100% reimbursed by grants or MMSD.
Any other questions? Okay, can we get a motion to approve the budget amendment, please?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Gallagher, seconded by Shaw. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, no? Motion carries. All right, the final item on our agenda then is the commission, committee, board, and staff reports. And I will start with number one. Alderman Vukovic, do you have anything to report?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay. Number two?
Got a chance to go for the first time to to Madison for the league's fall conference, and I was impressed, a lot of good things. So, first time I went, I'm glad I did.
Okay. Number three?
Nothing this evening.
Number four? Nothing this evening. Number five?
Well, to consolidate all my notes from the conference, but we'll get to that sooner.
Okay, number six?
The report.
City administrator.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who helped work the election last Tuesday. It was a long 20-hour day for some employees, including the city clerk. And then everyone showed up at 8 a.m. the next day to break it down and do their normal work and work the entire week. So thanks to everybody who worked the election. There was a lot of voters here. I'm not sure what our exact turnout was, but I'm sure.
92.1%.
Okay, you might get to that, so I'll let that for you.
The record.
2020
It
was
is.
91.2.
2020 was 91.2, this time it was 92.1. We
yeah.
actually went up over
Yep.
1% from last time. Yeah. Or almost 1%. All right, Mr. Bear,
Thank you, nothing.
Chief.
Nothing to report.
All right, and the clerk is not with us tonight, she is ill, but I would offer just a commendation to the clerk, all the city staff, deputy city administrator, everyone really stepped up. We had, pretty brisk volume, we still had, I think we were at 57 point something percent of the city had voted before we got to election day, with early in-person voting as well as absentee voting. That means we still had 35% that showed up on election day. So it was pretty brisk regularly at all the polling places, plus we had people counting. 2/3 of the city voters voted absentee ballot, so they were busy doing that all day long as well. But the election went smoothly, and actually across the county, the election went smoothly. ICC met today. I don't really have anything to report from the ICC. Planning and Architecture Review Commission meets tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here in this room. And on Wednesday through Saturday, I will be at the National League of Cities. And I think that's my entire, the North Shore Fire Department is not meeting this month. There's nothing on the agenda. So no North Shore Fire Department meeting. All right, that concludes my report. And at this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Doherty, seconded by Shaw. All those in favor of adjourning, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Stand adjourned at 7:04.